Morning, I am excited for the message from God entitled "Don't Quit on 6." Don't quit on 6. No doubt that there is a person here this morning that's tempted to quit. That's what it's like when you're living in a broken, hard place where. Morning, I want to encourage us to keep on. I want to encourage us to fix our eyes on. King James Version says in Hebrews 12:2, it says to fix our eyes on the author and the finisher of our faith. Most followers would say we are people of faith. I mean, I'm not sure how you can be a follower without being a person of faith, right? And so we believe by faith, and Jesus is defined as the author, the one who wrote it and finished it. And he's in the process of finishing it, and we're caught in between that, the author, the writing of it, and the finishing of it, and we're stuck in the middle here, and sometimes we're simply going, I don't know what this means right now for me, because we are halfway to the finish line. In fact, we don't really know how close we are to the finish line. Isn't that the reality? Just the stark reminder, from, of course, local tragedies, and, we just don't have much time between, as I heard in a song recently, between the cradle and the coffin. It just doesn't give us a lot of time. And so somewhere in the middle there is where each of us finds ourselves. That's where we are. And so, I want to encourage us this morning to fix our eyes on the one who is writing the story, and the one who will finish it eventually. Hebrews 12, let us run with patience, with endurance, with perseverance, the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder or the author, and the perfecter or the finisher of our faith, who, and did he understand that time in between? Did he understand? You betcha he does, does he not? Who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross. And so you and I understand, likely, what it means to be bearing or facing a cross. And he did. He bore the cross. He carried the cross. And a cross is a hard thing. We've made it beautiful. We've been guilty of romanticizing the cross. The cross is a symbol of execution, of death, of pain, and he put that on his back, and he walked that Via Dolorosa, that way. He walked that way of pain because he knew what lay in the end. He knew what the end held, and that's what you must fix your eyes on. You must fix your eyes on what lies ahead. And so this is what it says about him, who for the joy that was set before him, for he knew what was coming, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. He did not enjoy. There was nothing about the current situation that he liked. He identifies with you if you find yourself in that. Don't quit. I am fraught by guilt from my past. Lay that down. Don't quit. I carry painful things. You don't know my addiction. You don't know my failure. You don't know my the people who have betrayed me. You don't know the betrayal that I felt. You don't know the lies that I've experienced from the people closest to me in my life. Don't quit. And here's the thing. There is not one person that is more deserving of salvation than another. The ground at the foot of the cross is level ground. It doesn't matter what you've done, where you've been. It doesn't matter what the cross is that you're needing to carry. Dear friends, stay in it. Stay engaged. Don't quit. And you might say, well, I want redemption. I want deliverance. And I don't know. I don't know why not everyone is experiencing redemption or deliverance in this life, but everyone who claims the name will experience redemption and deliverance. But for some people, it doesn't change in this world. There is not one person who is more deserving of salvation than another. And so who here deserves it? The story of Naaman for this morning, he did not deserve. God in his grace went to, he healed a Syrian commander of the army. This is a wild story this morning. And so don't quit. Wherever. He says, I have cried out to God, 3 times. I'm asking him to change the situation or to remove this from me. That he calls it this thorn. And he says, and God did not. So sometimes that is how it is. And he writes this, but I am confident of this, Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, that he who began a good work will carry it to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Jesus actually talked about Naaman, and at the beginning of his ministry, he mentions 2 individuals when he read in the synagogue. I believe it was in Nazareth. He read from Isaiah 61 and sort of reads his commissioning passage, and the people are looking at him saying, "Who do you think you are? You grew up here. You're Joseph and Mary's son. You're the carpenter. Who? Why do you think that you are some great preacher now?" And he says this. You see, he says, a prophet is seldom received well in his own country. And then he says, and he talks about the widow of Zarephath, I think it was. He says, there were many widows, but God used the one in Zarephath when the skies were shut for 3.5 years. And then he says this, Luke 4:27, and there were many lepers in Israel at the time of the prophet Elisha. There were many lepers. There were many who were unclean. There were many who were sick during this time, and none of them was cleansed. But only Naaman the Syrian. And here Jesus, so perhaps we find ourselves, saying, yeah, I believe in Jesus. I believe Jesus. But these Old Testament stories, I don't know. I don't get it. I think this is kind of weird. You believe Jesus? He just referenced this account. Luke 4, verse 27. There were many lepers in Israel at the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed, but only Naaman the Syrian. This morning, I'd like to just go through the story of 2 Kings chapter 5. I invite you to turn to that in your Bibles. I'll have the words on the wall as well, and we're going to talk about the story. 2 Kings 5, 1-5. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and in high favor because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was a mighty man of valor, but Naaman had a problem. He had leprosy. Naaman was a leper. Now, let's understand a few things here. He's commander of the army. He is the second highest man in Syria. Only the king is above him. The king is his master. And he is in high favor. It says that God used him and calls him a mighty man, but he was a leper. Now, the Syrians, on one of their raids, had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and now she worked as a maid in Naaman's house for Naaman's wife. And she said to her mistress, would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy. 2 things. Number 1, there's a little child of faith. Number 2, how did she know this? Her parents have no idea that, almost 4,000 years later, No, 3,000. 3,000, just shy of 3,000 years later, we are still talking about their daughter. There was some faithful parents in the land of Israel who were teaching their child. Dear friends, parents, teach your children. Tell them these stories. Tell them about God over and over and over. These stories do not get old. We are forgetful people. And what is learned early in life will stay late. And so be encouraged in that. For those of us who aren't parents, there is someone who to you is like this little girl. They need you to minister. These parents have no idea. They don't even know that their daughter was used in the healing of Naaman. All they know is that they lost their girl in a devastating loss to the Syrians. That's all they know. You and I don't quit on 6. You and I don't see the whole picture. We see this tiny window through which we look, and we simply see details that don't make sense half the time. Don't quit. Stay faithful. That's the message from God. So I think of the mom and dad of this little girl. Their land was invaded by the Syrians, and they were annihilated, and their daughter was taken, and they must be wondering, what happened to our little girl? Was she killed? Was she, were all sorts of atrocities done to her? Have no idea. They have no idea. And here she is, serving in the house of the commander of the army, and she says, if Naaman would just know about the prophet of Samaria, and then he could be cured. So Naaman went into his lord, and who's his lord? To the king. This is the king that was at war. So Israel and Syria, you already know this, that this is a time of the divided kingdom. Israel in the north, Judah in the south, and Syria was further north, and they fought with the Israelites. They were enemies. Naaman goes to his master, the king, and says, this little girl from the land of Israel said, if I would go to see this prophet, I could be healed. Pardon me. And the king says, go. You should go. Now, let's understand a few things first. Understand that leprosy is a very broad term. If you look at Leviticus chapter 13, that's where God outlines how to handle skin diseases. And leprosy could be anything from, it could be something almost like a rash that was just painful or annoying, but it could be also, of course, what we expect, what Naaman had, is that it was a rotting of the skin. And so to understand, it wasn't just a rash because he wanted to be healed. He was going to take a fairly desperate measure for healing. He was willing to go deep into the land of the enemy and go to a strange witch doctor. Some sorcerer, some guy's going to wave his hand over his wound and say, abracadabra, and boom, going to be healed. That's what he expected. He did not know Yahweh. Naaman does not know the God of Israel. He was not even seeking the God of Israel. He was not seeking Yahweh. So here he is, but he said, so with leprosy, and likely his ears and his nose, if it went on, was going to fall off. It was a horrible disease. And the king says, well, go. I'm going to do you one better than that. I'll write a letter of commendation. I'll write a letter to the king of Israel saying, I want you to heal this guy. And so he went, and then he said, and I want to send gifts. Let's take a whole bunch of gifts. And so Naaman headed out with a massive entourage. There were horses and wagons and Well, let's have a look. So he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. That's my favorite one. 10 changes of clothing. Why? Maybe he felt that the people of Israel could handle a little Assyrian fashion. I don't know. But he goes to his master. 10 talents of silver is about 750 pounds. That's a lot. This is a massive gift. 750 pounds of silver. 6,000 shekels of gold is 144 and a half pounds. I mean, this guy, he loaded down that wagon with wealth and 10 changes of clothing and men and bodyguards, the entire entourage. So let's just have a quick look here. If you would slide down the map there. This gives you a little bit of a picture of how far they needed to go. In the middle, we have the kingdom of Israel, and Elisha's house was at a place called, I think it was Dothan, and it's just north of the city of Samaria. Samaria would have been the largest city in this part of Israel. The two largest cities, which ended up sort of being the capitals of Judah and Israel, are Jerusalem and Samaria. So here he is, traveling a great distance deep into enemy territory. He is seeking healing. He is seeking a sorcerer. He is seeking someone who can do the magic, and so that he can go back home and then return to this land and kill them. Naaman is not seeking, he doesn't see this as a spiritual journey. And so here he is traveling deep into the kingdom of Samaria. Let's go on. And so verses 6 and 7. And he came to probably the city of Samaria and to where the king was. He brought the letter to the king of Israel, and it read like this. When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you Naaman, my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy. Oh, now when the king of Israel, and now let's just back this up a little bit. What do we know about, just from the last number of sermons? Israel is not following Yahweh right now. They are not even seeking him. In fact, in your Bibles, when you see the word Lord in all capitalized, that means Yahweh. It is actually referencing the name of the Hebrew God. The name, not just as a master, but as a name. And so that's what this is here. And so Israel, they have made Yahweh just as one of the many deities at this point. Well, you know the story that in this time frame, they, of the 40-some kings, I think about 8 of them were faithful and devout. It's not a great percentage. And so they sort of, sometimes the kings would be faithful. In this case, that's not so. They have made Yahweh just one of the many deities in the land of Canaan, just like Baal and Asherah and all the others, and Yahweh is just another one of the gods. And so the king of Israel read the letter that Naaman brought, and he tore his clothes, he ripped them off, and here he is, the king, probably standing half naked in the street. And he says, am I God? To kill and to make alive, that this man sends word to me to cure this man of his leprosy? Oh, man. Just think about this. Consider this. He said, this guy's just picking another fight. That's all he wants. Why would he send his commander to me for healing? He's just looking for another reason to battle. There's no way. I can't heal him. He's going to return home unhealed, and then they're going to come back and slaughter us again. When Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel was naked, he said, go put your clothes back on. Maybe use some of those 10 sets. Now, he said, When Elisha, the next slide, when Elisha, the man of God, heard the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent a messenger to the king and said, Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come to me now, and he will know there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses, his chariots, stood at the door. So here's this Syrian commander of the army, and he comes to this little, I can imagine, this little humble hut of a prophet in Dothan, this little village town, and he pulls up in front with the entire group. And Elisha, he doesn't even go out to meet him. I mean, this is a commander. He is accustomed to people saluting him. He is accustomed to being honored. And remember, he is thinking that he's coming to a sorcerer or a witch doctor or some guy who's going to do the magic and heal him. And Elisha doesn't even leave his house. He sends a messenger out. And Elisha sends a messenger and it says, saying, you are to go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh will be restored, and you'll be clean. And Naaman was ticked. You're telling me that I have traveled. Well, first of all, you are coming on the advice of a little girl. But you're telling me that I have traveled this deep into... and he gets back into his chariot and he heads for Syria. I mean, I think he's thinking that now for sure he has a reason to come back and attack. He is angry, it says, and he went away saying, Behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon the name of the Lord, and do his thing. It's what it says. He says, wave his hand over the place of my leprosy and I'd be healed. He expected a little bit of a show. He would wave his hand over the place and he'd cure the leper. Are not, Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, cleaner than the Jordan River? Are they not better than all the waters in Israel? Could I not just go and wash in them and be clean? And so he turned away in a rage. Now, one thing that Naaman didn't know, Elisha did, he knew the significance of the Jordan River. Now, it wasn't the Jordan that healed him. But Elisha knew the significance of the Jordan River. He understood. Elisha understood that Yahweh would meet him there. I don't know if you have any of those places in your life. Do you have any places in your life that have that spiritual significance where God met you there, and so it's special to you? Those places are important, and I think we should give more. I think we should give more significance to those private places. God honors those. Now, this place was not, it was special to Elisha, but not to Naaman. Let's go on here. But one of his servants, he came to him and said, so graciously and so kind, he said, My father, if Elisha had asked you to do something really big, would you not have done it? If Elisha had asked you, you're used to doing big things, would you not have done it? If he would have had a great ceremony, would you not have participated? He's asking you to do something little. He's just saying, go wash and be clean. Why don't you do that? And there's something that happens in Naaman. He has a change of heart. He decides, I suppose. And I wonder so many things. So they headed for the Jordan River, and the Jordan in places was actually not very clean. And it was actually not very large. In a few places it was bigger, but in many places it was kind of a sandy, muddy river. And so he heads down to the Jordan. And he goes, he says, and so here are other just questions I wonder. So these guys, he had the whole entourage. Did he go in with his clothes on? I mean, these aren't important questions, but they're questions we could think about. Or did he get undressed and go in? And then what was he thinking? So he's in this, and the sand and the mud is coming up around him, and then he dips himself down. Did he count out loud? Did the guys on the bank count? 1, 2. And Naaman, still there, must have said, if he didn't undress, it's like my outfit is totally ruined. Sometimes you and I, on our faith journeys, we say things like that. People are going to think I'm so weird. If I, what God is asking of me, it doesn't make sense. 3. Some people just start watching you on your journey on your third dip. And they're going, what a weirdo. What's this guy doing in the river? He's just bobbing in mud. He's in the mud. He's in the muck. And that's how it is in your life too sometimes. You say, you have no idea what I'm doing. You're right. I don't think you do either. Don't quit. 4, don't quit. Oh man, even my own men are starting to laugh at me. He took the advice of the little girl, traveled deep into Israel. 5, it's not working. It's not working. And you have those people in your life too? How's that working out for you? You look foolish. I am such an idiot. 6, don't quit on 6. Don't quit on 6. You don't know how close you are to the 7th dip. Don't quit on your marriage. Don't quit on your kids. Don't quit on the cross that you are bearing. Don't quit your battle. Don't quit on 6. There's no healing at 6. You might say, "Oh man, when will I be free?" Not at 6. When is it going to be my turn to be the lender instead of the borrower? When will I have freedom? Don't quit at 6. The people in your life, don't expect them to affirm you. When you make the choice to become a follower of Jesus Christ, if the world is applauding, there's a chance that you're not getting some things right. Man, if they would really know my struggle, if they would really know, if Naaman would have walked out of the Jordan River and said, "This is stupid," he wouldn't have had healing. You see, stay in that river. Stay in that river. 7th time down, Naaman goes down, and can you imagine what went through his body when he started touching his spots, and he's looking at his body, and he's going, We know how he responded. He hustled out of that mud. That's the same way, that's just a great parallel of many of our lives, is it not? We get stuck in the mud, and we can hustle out of there too. Suddenly it didn't matter that the guys on the bank were laughing. It didn't matter that his outfit was ruined. It didn't matter that people didn't get it. He came out of there. Don't throw in the towel. Let's just read quickly. So actually what I was going to say, let's read the next portion, 15 to 19. And he returns to the man of God. He puts on a new set of clothing, and all of his company comes with him, and they come back to the house at Dothan. And by the way, that's not just across the field. It took a deliberate choice. Now, he was sort of on his way to Syria when he got to the Jordan. And there's a good chance that Elisha was thinking, yeah, just wash in the river and you can carry on home. Elisha was not in this for himself. He's in it for God. And you and I, when we choose to bear our cross, when we choose to engage in the kingdom, when we choose to become followers of Jesus Christ, It is no longer about us. It is no longer about our rights. It is no longer about us. It is really all about him. It always has been. You know, I think just this last week, I made the comment, it's probably at school, I don't remember what the situation was, and I said, you know, we are guilty of making ourselves the main character of the Bible. We are guilty of reading the Bible and saying, where do I fit into this? What's in this for me? Bible's never been about you. It's a story of God. It's a story of what God is doing. We're part of it, but we're not the main characters. It's a story of God. Anyway, and so that's how Elisha, this was God's thing. It wasn't his. Wash in the Jordan, carry on home. We'll see you next time you come back, if you know what I'm saying. And he returns, but he is fired up. I mean, I am going to give him gifts. He returns to the man of God, he and all his company, and they came and stood before him, and he said, he says this, behold, Elisha, I know, now I know, there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. So accept this present from your servant. And he calls himself the servant of the prophet. And Elisha says, Naaman. Okay, so as sure as the Lord lives, I'm not going to take a gift. It had nothing to do with me. I did nothing. It had nothing to do. I don't have the, you know, that's what God did. And he urged him. He said, take it. But he refused. And Naaman said, okay, so if you're not going to take, you don't even want a new set of clothing? No, I don't want any gift. This is the God's work. It's not mine. And he says, okay, if you're not going to take a gift from me, I'll have a weird request. There are so many weird things in this story. And I just love it that Jesus referenced it. It just gives, it sort of bolsters my faith, I suppose. And he says, if you don't mind, if you're not going to give a gift, can I take one? Can I take as much of the dirt from here as what 2 mules can carry? I wonder if what he's saying, and remember, Naaman doesn't know Yahweh. He still doesn't know him. All he knows is that he was a leper, and now he is healed. And he says, I'm wondering if I can take some dirt. And so that when I get back, because Naaman says, this is holy ground to me. Remember that place I talked about? That's what he's saying. This place there's something special about this place now. And so I'm wondering, when I get back home and I'm sacrificing, can I take some dirt that I can sacrifice from this ground? Because this place holds something special to me. God met me at this place. And when you have those places in your life, put that little rock there for yourself as well. Take some of that dirt as well. And he says that so from now on, your servant will not offer burnt offerings to any god, but to the Lord. In this matter, may the Lord pardon your servant. He says, but there is the one thing. I'm going to worship your God, but there is the one thing. You know, my master, who's his master, the king, when the king goes into the house of Rimmon to worship, you see, nobody where I come from knows who Yahweh is. Nobody knows who the Lord is, and I'm still serving my master there. And so if my master goes into the house of Rimmon to worship there, you know, there are times that he's going to lean on me, and I'm going to have to bow as well. That's what he says. And so when I bow myself to Rimmon, the Lord pardon your servant in this matter. And it's amazing. And Elisha says, no, you can't do that. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, you can't do that. You can't go into the temple of Rimmon after you've been healed by Yahweh. What does he say? He says, shalom. Go in peace. I still have a few questions about some of this. You see, this had nothing to do with Elisha. Elisha's not really, it's a story of God. And he is confident that I am certain that Elisha is confident that Naaman will never forget Yahweh. Even though he enters the temple of Rimmon, he will remember Yahweh. He will never bow to Rimmon without thinking about Yahweh. Yahweh is the one who healed him. All right, so don't quit on 6. We're not going to, I'm just going to go through the next section a little bit. This is a crazy part of the story. Gehazi is Naaman's servant. And Gehazi has been with him. We just looked at a number of miracles, right? Raising the Shunammite's, bringing the Shunammite widow's son back to life. Gehazi was there. When there was poison in the pot and they were eating from it and people were getting sick, and Elisha puts some good flour in and it becomes good, Gehazi was there. And when there was the widow who was out of oil and out of bread, and Elisha, there is provision given, the little bit of oil is used, Gehazi was there. Gehazi quit on 6. Gehazi didn't finish well. Friends, that doesn't matter how well. Gehazi was there the whole time. He was there through it all. He had a story. And he is watching. He sees this load of wealth heading down that dust-covered road at Dothan. And Gehazi is looking at his master in his little hut, and he's saying, what? They were here with like $1 million. He didn't even take a little bit. He didn't take anything. In fact, he gave to him. And Gehazi runs after. And Naaman sees him coming, and he stops the chariot, stops the entourage, gets down, and he says, is everything okay? And he says, all is well. And Gehazi constructs this, makes up a story. And he says there were 2 sons of the prophets of Elisha's prophets. There were 2 that showed up. And Elisha sent me after you. And he's wondering if I could have, what does it say, a talent of silver and 2 changes of clothing for them. Just a little bit. And Naaman says, 1 talent, I'll give you 2. And 2 changes of clothing, by all means. And it says he bags it up and gives it to him. Friends, until you choose to live in honesty, you will live leprously. Sometimes we look in our culture around us and we wonder why God blesses. Now, we don't have time to get into this whole lot, but I believe that God blesses honesty. I believe that God blesses his morals even in unbelieving people. Naaman was not a believer, and God blessed him. Until you and I choose to live in honesty, on that 4th time down, 5th, 6th time down, and we're going, people are really going to think I'm weird. Keep going down. Keep going down. Stay in that. And let's just look at Gehazi comes back, and Elisha goes, where were you? Oh, nowhere. You haven't we all been there? Where were you? Nowhere. And Elisha says, don't do that. Where were you? And then Elisha already knew, and he says, is this the time? Is now the time to accept money and garments and olive orchards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and servants? Gehazi? The leprosy of Naaman is now going to cling to you. The leprosy of Naaman is now going to cling to you and your descendants forever. And Gehazi looks at himself, and he goes out leprous. It says, he went out from there as a leper. Friends, don't quit. Don't quit. Don't quit on 6. Don't quit on 6. Jesus is working a work, and you and I just see this tiny little window. And you and I might be the parents of a little girl that all we see is loss. All we see is devastation. All we see is that she was taken from us. God, how dare you? How? Little do we know what he is doing. Don't quit on 6. He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion in the day of Christ Jesus. Gehazi, what a sad ending. And friends, it is easy to start. It is easy to get to the Jordan. It is easy to begin. It is a completely different thing to go down 7 times. Or in the words of, Peter, to forgive always 70 times 7. That's a completely different thing. Don't quit on 6, friends. Go down 7 times. Stay engaged, and he who began the work will bring it to completion. God bless you all as you continue to seek him, to follow him, and to be faithful to him.